Hey y'all, and welcome back to Inspired by Jerica Brichet, and welcome back to the Zodiac Signs mini series. You guys, this is the last video of the series, and it belongs to none other than the infamous Pisces. And as an honorary member, I have the sun in Pisces. You guys, I had to get a little creative, a little spunky, a little funky with my wardrobe today. So I am rocking my Hogwarts Hufflepuff robes today. Team Hufflepuff. Do you guys like Harry Potter? Are you Harry Potter fans? I truly am. I love me some Harry Potter. And last year for spring break, I traveled to Universal Studios with my family and got my robes, you guys. And it felt like a whole rites of passage. Okay. I got my whole little name on here. Uh, anyway, it was such a good experience. But anyway, welcome back, you guys. I'm glad you're here. If this is the first time that you're clicking on any of my videos, welcome to my channel. I'm glad that you are here. And definitely make sure you check out my welcome videos and click the About Me section so that you can maybe visit my website and just learn a little bit more about your girl, okay? For those of you that are returning, hey, thank you for coming back. And y'all already know what to do because you know I'm going to do an introduction for the series. Okay, so make sure you check the timestamps below if you want to skip this portion and go ahead and head into the Big Four for Pisces. But for those of you that this is the first video of the mini series that you have clicked on, you definitely want to, number one, go back and watch the other 11 videos that came before this one. But you'll also want to hear these next two parts, okay? So basically, what I have been doing is for people who are interested in knowing how the zodiac signs get their meanings, how they're getting it. Siri, we do not need you right now. Thank you. If you have been interested in how the signs get their meanings or their significations, you know, how do they get these stereotypes? How do we know that Pisces is Pisces and Virgo is Virgo or whatever? Where does that come from? That is what my intention has been in trying to deep dive into that and really, or more dive deep into that and figure that out. What makes up a sign? What contributes to the meaning of a sign? That's what we've been doing in this series. And we have also been traveling through the zodiac by polarity. So instead of doing the normal order, you know, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, we have been doing it by the polarity. So we did still start with Aries, but then the second video was Libra. Then we moved on to Taurus, the fourth video, Scorpio, so on and so forth. And I did it this way so that you can better understand how the polarity signs are technically one and the same. And we'll talk a little bit more about where that comes from. It comes from the universal law of polarity. And essentially, the opposite signs are the same in nature, but they just differ in degree. And the difference of the degree in which the energy is expressed is how we're able to determine one sign from its opposite sign. So yeah, if that interests you, you'll definitely love this series. You'll definitely want to check out the others. And I have found during my journey learning astrology that learning the opposite sign helps you to know the opposite sign, if you get what I'm saying. So, for example, if I'm trying to understand Pisces by understanding Virgo, I can understand Pisces a little bit better. You get my drift? Okay. All right. So I also take a traditional approach to astrology. Okay. So that means I stick with the main five planets: Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. And then the two luminaries, the sun and the moon. So those seven together are what I recognize when talking about the birth chart or just astrology in general. Okay. I do recognize the outer planets, just not for rulership. Okay. So that means that Jupiter rules Pisces, Saturn rules Aquarius, Mars rules Scorpio. So you're not going to hear too much throughout this series about Pluto, Uranus, or Neptune. Okay. So I think we're ready, you guys. Let's get started. Okay, so giving you guys a really, really simple, superly duperly basic intro to astrology, okay? Astrology derives from the Greek word astro, meaning star, and logos, which means knowledge, information, or a language, okay? So then astrology is the language of the stars or star talk, okay? And that knowledge is what we believe derives from the heavens. And astrology actually studies the correlation between the movement of the celestial bodies, also known as the planets, and the terrestrial events that happen on Earth. So, this is all from a geocentric point of view, meaning from the point of view that we have here on Earth. And astrology actually operates under the universal law of correspondence. So we've got two universal laws that we touch on throughout this mini series: the law of correspondence and then the law of polarity. Okay. But with the law of correspondence, you're probably familiar with the axiom as above, so below, as within, so without, right? Or something similar to that. Well, the idea of that axiom is that the universe is a whole system. And then within that whole system are lesser but still whole systems, okay? And they mirror each other. So the whole system, the universe, would be like the macrocosm, and then the lesser systems within that universe would be the microcosm. And so they mirror each other, they reflect. What is happening on one plane is reflected on another plane. And so essentially by using astrology, you're able to, by studying the macrocosm, which would be the celestials, we will be able to better understand ourselves as terrestrials, because we know that whatever is going on in the heavens or in the celestial sphere is being reflected on the lesser systems, which is us, right? That's mankind. So, whatever is done at a particular moment in time inherently has the qualities of that moment. And astrology is the study of the nature of those moments, right? So, if you've been watching a few of my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of etymology, right? And so think about this when you're considering astrology. We use in science a microscope, right? And micro means small or little, right? Scope means to look into something. So we use a microscope to magnify things that are small so that we can peer into it, so that we can look into it. Well, in the ancient times, the birth chart was called the horoscope. Horo, Horo. And horo means time, okay, like Horus. Horo means time. And so scope means to look into, right? To peer into something. So astrology is then the study of time. We are literally looking into the birth chart to magnify it and get an understanding of the energies, right? The same way in which a microscope would be used to look into, so that you're able to make things that are small bigger in order to understand them. And you do the same thing with astrology. You're looking at the birth chart through the horoscope, right? And that way you magnify it and you can get a better understanding of the energy of that person, place, event, whatever the case. Okay. So that is sort of a very quick, like I said, basic intro into astrology. Now I want to give you guys a basic intro into the signs, okay? So, zodiac derives from the Greek word zodiakos, meaning circle or like little circle of animals. And the signs are actually birthed from a combination of interactions between the four elements, which give birth to the four seasons, and the three modalities in which they operate. We know that three, if you study anything in regards to alchemy or anything that's metaphysical, you know that three is very solid. We know that the triangle is a very solid geometrical structure, okay? So, being that time is cyclical, okay, when we're talking about any cycle, there tends to be a beginning, middle, and I don't like to call it end. I like to say transition, because the cycle technically just starts back over. And it's the same thing with astrology. So when you take those four seasons, times those 3 modes of a cycle. 4 times 3 is 12, and that is how you get the 12 zodiac signs, okay? Now, contrary to popular belief, okay, the signs are not the stars of the show when it comes to astrology or even looking into a birth chart, okay? And if you follow like pop astrology or sometimes some modern takes on astrology will kind of give you the impression that the signs are the most important. And I'm not saying that they're not important. They're just not the most important, okay? The most important would be the actual celestial bodies, the planets, because without the planets, there is nothing to be expressed. And that's what the signs do. They sort of add flavor and color, and they sort of spice things up and give expression for the planets as they move throughout the different signs. So the way that I like to look into it is think of the planets as a body or the self, and then think of the signs as the wardrobe, okay? And when we're considering modern day, right? It's 2023. The fashion industry is huge. We have made wardrobe clothing a huge thing, right? But we have to consider, would your clothes matter if you did not have a body to put them on? Right? So you have all these different ways in which you can express yourself through your clothing. But without a body, none of those clothes matter anymore if the body ceased to exist. And that's how it is with astrology, right? As long as we have planets, the signs matter. They take on so much more meaning because they need the planets in order for them to have importance. So I hope you understand what I'm saying with that. I'm hoping that that makes sense. But the signs are fun. I'm literally doing a whole mini series on the signs, so they are important. However, when you're studying astrology, you focus on the planets first. Okay. All right, you guys. So let's jump into Pisces. So there are 4 major things that I am going to be looking at to lead to, or that I will be using to help to determine the meaning and understanding the meaning and significations of a sign, okay? And those 4 things are: first, the gender of the sign, okay? So is the sign yin or yang? Is it masculine or feminine, nocturnal or diurnal? Any of those words will work. I prefer masculine or feminine, or yin or yang, right? So we'll be looking at the gender of the sign. We will also consider the sign's element. We will also consider the modality of the sign, as I mentioned earlier, that beginning, middle, or transition. Which of those is the modality for which the sign operates? And last, we are considering the traditional planetary ruler for the sign. So what planet rules or governs the said particular sign, okay? So, jumping into Pisces. The gender for Pisces, as you can see on the screen, is yin or feminine. The element is water. The modality is mutable, or some might say double bodied. And the ruler is none other than the grandiose Jupiter. So, let's talk about yin, okay? Yin energy is repressive, it is receptive, introverted, and guarded, okay? It is opposite yang, right? So yin, feminine, yang, masculine. And I have been giving this example in a few of the videos throughout this series, but it works so well. I know people don't like to talk about body parts and gender nowadays, but when you think yin being receptive, you think of the female body and how her anatomy, her lower anatomy, is created to receive, correct? And how with the male's anatomy, his goes outward. So it is external, right? It what's the word that I want to use? Talking about body parts a little bit, but it extends outward, right? But for the female, hers is to receive. So I love how that's reflected in nature. That is a gender on earth is a manifestation of the universal law of gender. And that is another one of the universal laws. pause real quick. If you guys are interested in learning about the universal laws, I highly recommend that you read a book called The Kabbalion by the Three Initiates. It will get you very easily acquainted with the seven universal laws or the seven hermetic principles in a way that is very understandable. Okay, now back to the miniseries. So that is yin. Okay, yin is a very internal experience. Okay, so it can be much harder to explain yin or feminine energy sometimes because it's very subtle, whereas masculine or yang energy is way more easy to see, like from the naked eye. It's something that is so expressive. It's something that you can easily pick up on. Okay, all right, now moving on to the element. Pisces is a water sign, okay? And water as an element is generated from the temperament qualities of cold and moist. So when we're talking about the qualities that we experience on Earth, you have two dynamic qualities, which is hot and cold, and the interactions between hot and cold create a second pole, which is moist and dry. Okay, so for water, water falls into the has the dynamic quality or the strong quality of cold, and then it has the passive quality of moist. Okay, as opposed to cold and dry of the earth element, which the polarity sign for Pisces is Virgo, which is an earth sign. So what we can already tell with what Pisces and Virgo have in common is that they both share the dynamic or dominant quality of cold, but then their passive qualities are different. Pisces is moist and Virgo's is dry. Okay, so it is the influence of that cold quality that sort of gives Pisces a contracting and a dense and absorbing attribute. And then it's the influence of the passive quality of moist that gives Pisces the malleability, the flexibility, the plasticity, and that ability to take on the form of whatever it is containing it. Okay, so that is why the flexibility, malleability, some of those terms that you tend to hear, some of those keywords that you tend to hear in regards to Pisces, this is where it's deriving from. Okay, the cold and the moist qualities, which is what make up the water element. Okay, so water is receptive, it is dense, right? Water is heavy, it seems really light, but once you get a whole bunch of it, it is very heavy, it draws down. And that's the thing about earth and water signs, is that they're both yin, they both go downward, whereas the fire and air signs being yang rise upward. Water is intuitive. We know that it's very sensitive, it's flexible, it's emotional, and it wants connection. And water holds memory. So Pisces tend to be very good at remembering things, and actually, I mean, Cancer and Scorpio are very good at remembering things. All of the water signs are good at remembering what has happened to them. And the thing sometimes with water and earth, I've noticed, is that there can be a tendency to be past oriented. Because of that whole memory sort of aspect. But yeah, so that's water. Water actually, before we move on to mutable, sorry you guys, I caught the thought just then, I had to catch it. Water signs also carry the phlegmatic temperament, which also gives them a greater focus on that emotionality, the subtleties of things. As I said, yin tends to focus on the subtleties, and sometimes the subtleties come off as details. For Virgo, it would be more details. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and that phlegmatic temperament of having the focus on the subtle things, the intricacies for Virgo, that comes out them being way more critical, judgmental, they tend to critique a lot of things, right? But when you see the subtleties in a water sign, that is what makes, I believe, makes Pisces so very sensitive, because it's able to see or feel rather all of the little things. And security is very important to yin signs as well. For earth, it's going to be more of a tangible materialistic sort of stability, and for water, it's going to be more of like an emotional security, wanting to feel emotionally safe. And as I stated, you do see those traits also expressed in the other two water signs of Scorpio and Cancer. Pisces season actually marks the transition from winter to spring. So that brings me to the modality, which is mutable, right? So Pisces season is that transition from winter. I think I said spring. I'm sorry. Yes, it is spring. Oh my gosh. Woo, let me slow down, y'all. Mercury retrograde in Taurus right now. Okay. Yes, it's the transition from and I say that because I left the word summer on the screen, and that sort of tripped me up a little bit. I'm sorry about that, guys. It should say spring in parentheses, not summer, okay? So Pisces season transitions us from winter into spring. And so spring is, well, not spring, but this transition period, Pisces season, happens just before the spring equinox, right? So this is the sun gaining light. We're starting, the sun is starting to gain light, because as we get closer to the equinox, the days are becoming longer, the nights are becoming shorter. Whereas in winter time, when we had the winter solstice, even from the well, it started in the fall equinox, we automatically had the nights being longer and the days being shorter. So what I like about Pisces season is that having this transition where the sun is truly starting to gain light as we get closer and closer to the spring equinox, it has already gone through the underworld. You know, it's had that inner journey, that dark night of the soul, right? That it's sort of already been through, and it's emerging from that. And I think that's where some of the not just the influence of Jupiter, but just some of the wisdom, the mystical guru sage archetype sort of aspect comes as well when it as in pertaining to Pisces. Let's see, what else about mutable do I have? It's ambivalent for sure, because when we're talking about mutability, the mutable modality is really a combination of the previous two modalities. So it's a little bit of cardinal and it's a little bit fixed. So the thing about mutable energy being the most flexible of the three modalities, because it represents transition, sometimes mutable signs can operate more like a cardinal sign, and then sometimes it can operate more like a fit sign. It has the ability to change between the two. And so mutable signs tend to seem very inconsistent. They seem a little bit slippery, like you just can't quite, like right when you think you got them or you understand them, they switch modes a little bit, sort of like that. So yeah, got inconsistent on there, has both cardinal and fixed qualities. And of course, there's that adaptability because of mutable being able to go from cardinal to fixed, from cardinal to fixed. That's adaptability. And all of the mutable signs, so we're talking Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo, they all have that ability to be adaptable to their environments and to be a little bit more ambivalent, like more go with the flow. Okay. All right. Jupiter. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, is what I was trying to say. And Jupiter is primarily characterized by its moist or sanguine quality, which gives it a warm, it's more of a moist and warm sort of planet. And you have to consider the fact that Jupiter is situated between a hot planet, Mars, and a cold planet, Saturn. So it's right there, warm and cozy and moist in the middle, right? Sort of makes sense. And the brilliance and the luminosity of Jupiter when you look in the night sky is also what contributes to, or is the reasoning behind, some of its most well known positive or benefic characteristics. So then Jupiter can be described as jovial. Grandiose is the biggest planet, right? It's a huge gas giant. Growth, expansion. Jupiter represents abundance. It is the higher mind. It's about ascension and truth, meaning and ethics, beliefs and faith, philosophy. We already stated wisdom, religion, and spirituality, having something to believe in. The sage, the guru, the heavenly king, if the sun is definitely the king of the solar system, I like to say Saturn is the king of the underworld, then to me, Jupiter is like the king of the heavens. There's something very royal and regal about Jupiter in the same ways that we could think of as the sun. And then Jupiter also rules legislation and morality. So justice and things being um, fair and equal, equality for all. All right. So now that we have an idea of the different aspects that contribute to the meanings of Pisces, we're going to take all of those different interpretations that we just derived from the Big Four. We're going to merge those together, and that's what's going to give us the energetic essence of Pisces in a Pisces environment in the birth chart. So remember, we're taking into consideration the gender, so yin, the element of water, the mutable modality, and the planetary ruler of Jupiter. So all of those keywords that you just saw on the previous slide, start to mix and match those, and that will give you a pretty decent description and interpretation for Pisces energy. So then Pisces energy is intuitive. It is sensitive, chameleon like, because of that mutability, right? We already talked about why it's intuitive and sensitive. We talked about that from a sense of the subtleties, and then the water element influence. It's impressionable. As we know, water lacks boundaries. Okay, if you pour out water, it's just gonna go, it's gonna take shape of whatever. So if there's cracks in the ground, it's going to mold into those cracks, so water signs definitely tend to need, especially Pisces, tends to need a container of some sort. It needs support, and it can definitely thrive from support, because support will help it to establish boundaries for itself. If not, it will just kind of disperse all over the place, lacking any sort of real direction. And that's something that it can really get from its opposite sign of Virgo, is to have a little bit more containment, to have a plan, to have some direction to which to direct the actual energy that it is expressing. Um, what else do we have? Spiritual, absolutely, because it's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is faith based. It's about our spirituality and philosophy and the higher learning. In the co-ruling sign here, Jupiter rules two signs. So not only does it rule Pisces, it also rules Sagittarius. And so whereas Sagittarius is way more directed as a fire sign, Sagittarius may have one belief, whereas Pisces may have many beliefs, because of that mutability. It's a bit more pliable and flexible than, the other sign, which is Sagittarius, the other co-ruled sign of Sagittarius. But yeah, so spiritual from that Jupiterian influence. It can be very otherworldly. People tend to say there's something very celestial about Pisces energy. And you have to think, as the 12th sign, you can see everything. You have a more of a bird's eye view. You're wanting to transcend the physical experience and really connect with something that is so much bigger, so much grander than itself. um Emotional, we know that that's water sign stuff. Empathic, and that's the sensitivities and subtleties. And remember, it takes the shape of whatever contains it, and so that can make a person very empathic, meaning that it is molded or influenced by its environment. So going back to the cracks in the ground, it's going to enter into those cracks, and those cracks have then has then given some sort of form, and that form gives some sort of influence. So when it comes to water signs, and particularly Pisces, you have to be careful of the containers that you allow yourself to get settled in. And you don't want to be in the containers too long, because what happens when water is stagnant? It attracts gnats, and it's gross. It just starts getting gross. Water has to flow. Water has to move. And so, I'm preaching to myself right now. So, it's very important for the water signs to allow fluidity, allow flow, and not to allow stagnation. And again, to be very careful with what you allow to contain you, because not all containers are going to be healthy or good for you. Pisces is very optimistic. It's imaginative. It definitely has this creative sense to it that is from Jupiter's influence of just being willing to see things big, and to ascend and really build up the self by looking at philosophy and having that spiritual connection. Pisces energy can be a bit of an escapist. It likes being so otherworldly sometimes that it doesn't care for the manifested practical earthly experience. Sometimes it enjoys the more spiritual aspects of things, but because that soul has incarnated, you're having an earthly experience. Pisces has to remember to stay grounded, free of limits. As we've seen with the Sagittarius likes freedom, and a part of that comes from the Jupiterian influence. Saturn wants to be free. Sagittarius wants to be free to move and do as it pleases as a fire sign. For Pisces, Pisces also wants freedom as well, freedom to be and freedom to exist without bounds, just to be able to do and express itself, to be and become whatever that which it wants to become. Flexible beliefs, we touched on that. Lacks definition, we talked about that because it has no shape of its own. Pisces can be very charitable, ethereal, creative, seeks connection. It is retentive with the emotions. Again, we know that water is absorbent, it can retain, it has memory. So for Pisces, as well as the other water signs, let things flow. Okay. So for Pisces, or any of the other water signs, it is not healthy for us to allow our emotions, which is energy and motion, to not be in motion. Okay. It's emotions that they're supposed to be moving. Okay. And when we retain memories, sometimes that can be to our detriment, where the energy is staying stagnant instead of being in the flow, and water needs to flow. And then Pisces is very healing. It's healing because it's water. We're made up of, I want to say, about 70% of water. And again, those Jupiterian aspects, connecting with something outside yourself, seeing the we in the one. There's so much more I could say about Pisces, but we'll keep going. Planets visiting Pisces' domain. So if you have planets in Pisces, they probably have trouble expressing themselves, especially unless it's Venus, because Venus is exalted here. She loves Pisces. But some other planets, like more fiery planet like Mars, it's like taking a candle and pouring water over it. It just snuffs them right out. They really fire type or more warmer planets may have trouble here, because you have to consider this is a cold and moist environment. Remember? So lacking boundaries expresses internally because it's yin. So a lot of the feelings and things that are going on, it's all internal for the earth and the water signs. Intuitive, we talked about that. Can be a little bit delusional, because if you're all in the spiritual and you're not grounding yourself, sometimes that can take you away. Think of the chakras, right? It's like being too much in your head chakras. You're only in the third eye and crown all the time, so much so that you're really missing out on some of the earthly experiences, and maybe being able to take some of what you're getting from the spirit realm and manifesting it through the chakras, so that it can get down to the root and you can actually see the physical manifestation of what you could be seeing from a spiritual standpoint. And lack discernment. Yeah. Even though Pisces is a spiritual sign, the lacks discernment part can be where, because you have no direction, or because you're absorbing so much, it's hard to determine what energies belong to you versus what energies belong to somebody else. Okay. All right. So, woo, in medical astrology, Pisces rules the feet. Okay. It also rules the immune system and the lymphatic system. And as I mentioned, the archetype for Pisces is usually like the sage, or the guru, or the martyr, so to speak. So wherever you have Pisces in your chart will typically be an area that requires reconciliation between spirit and matter. So even when you think of Pisces and Virgo, consider that, right? You have spirit, which is more Piscean, and then you have matter, which is a little bit more Virgo. But what I will say I like about Virgo is the fact that Virgo is a nice form of bringing spirit and matter to it. Well, not spirit and matter, I'm sorry, connecting the mind and the body, because the body would be represented by Earth, and then the mind is the mercurial influence on Virgo, since it is ruled by Mercury. So it's very interesting to see how there's connection with this particular polarity of Pisces and Virgo. But yeah, you're in this area of your chart, you're going to want to connect to something bigger than you. And this will be an area of your chart where you really, really need to try to go with the flow as much as possible. Okay, you guys, now we're getting into the polarity for Pisces, and we've been touching on it throughout the video, but the polarity sign is none other than Virgo. And so when we're talking about the universal law of polarity, we have to understand that polarities are two sides of the same coin, okay? These are things that appear to be opposite or contradictory in nature, but they're not. They're actually identical in nature, but they just differ in degree. And the differing of those degrees, the more differing those degrees are, the more you can see the manifestation of two separate entities or energies. Whereas where you lack degree is where they're going to seem more one and the same. So for Pisces and Virgo, as we touched on earlier, we can see where they are the same is the fact that they are both mutable signs and they are both yin signs. But then where they are different is that Pisces is a water sign, Virgo is an earth sign. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So, as I mentioned in the Virgo video, actually, both Virgo and Pisces are very curious types of energies, and they're both all about the details. And we sort of touched on this when talking about subtleties. They both love learning and soaking up information. Virgo just prefers to learn in a more of an intellectual way because of Mercury's influence, whereas Pisces prefers through experience. It wants to have an experience with you, an emotion with you, and that is more Jupiterian, because Jupiterian wisdom is definitely based on experience. The guru becomes the guru, the teacher becomes the teacher because of the experiences that they've had. Whereas with Mercury, that wisdom and knowledge comes intellectually. It's because you studied something or you read it somewhere. But with Jupiter has the actual experience in the thing. So it's a different type of wisdom. You know what I'm saying? I'm hoping that that's making sense. So we know that Virgo is going to be way more practical, way more grounded, but Pisces is going to be more fluid and more emotionally driven. So, whereas Virgo may get very much caught up in the details of things, Pisces is able to imagine, to allow imagination and possibility to exist without allowing the critiques and every little hair being out of place to sort of ruin that experience. But Pisces could learn to have a little bit more form from Virgo. So, allowing something to give you shape, allowing facts to be reasoned with, like to not just because you feel it doesn't always mean that it's true. So by leaning onto some of that Virgo energy, you can be a little bit more grounded with your discerning and with making sure that things truly are what they are, and you're not falling onto the delusional or the illusionist side of things. I think that both signs, both Virgo and Pisces, are also very much invested in the betterment of humanity. Of course, Virgo is going to come from more of a earthly experience versus Pisces's motivation is going to be more spiritually driven. Virgo is going to do it because it helps humanity. It's what the earth needs. It's about that practicality, resourcefulness, and function ability. Whereas for Pisces, it's because they want to connect. It's because by realizing how I treat others is then how I treat myself, and how I treat myself then reflects in how I treat others. And so my betterment for humanity as a Pisces, right, comes from that. It's realizing that by how I treat others really has a reflection on how I treat myself and the experience that I will then have. So you realize that you can't just walk by a person and say, oh, well, that's their problem. No, because you realize that really the one is the we. And that's the higher stuff, the higher learning stuff with Pisces, right? Um, so yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys could come up with a lot more in regards to the polarities if you just consider Jupiter versus Mercury and a lot of their differences, and then water versus earth. So let me know what you guys come up with in the comment section. But we're gonna keep going because we're already at about 40 minutes or so right now. I'm trying to keep this short. Kinda. Y'all know I can't keep it short. I've been trying. I think the shortest video is probably Aries, and I want to say that video was a little over 30 minutes, maybe. But anyway, let's get going, you guys. Let's figure out, where is Pisces in your chart. So we have a Pisces rising chart on the screen. Y'all already know about the glyphs. If they are backwards, if they're showing backwards for you guys, it's just because of the way I had to flip the graphic in order to get a Pisces rising chart, but we're gonna roll with it. So we're gonna go through to see where Pisces is in your chart by the rising sign. So kicking things off with Aries rising. All right, if you're Aries rising, you have Pisces on the 12th house of the shadow self, the privacy of the psyche. This is our area of solitude. This is the blind spot when it comes to us. So a lot of Aries rising people may not really connect much with Pisces energy. It's not something that they may easily be able to see or recognize in themselves. And that's because it's in your blind spot. It's more of the shadow self. And it's the privacy of the psyche. Maybe if you were meditating or in some of your spiritual experiences, that's when you'll probably tap into more of that Pisces energy, when you have those moments of solitude. For Taurus rising, you have Pisces energy on the 11th house of friends, groups, social interactions, like-minded people. So Taurus rising, you may have friends, or you may really get along with people who are either sun in Pisces or Pisces moon or Pisces rising, or maybe they just have a lot of planets in Pisces. So Taurus rising, you're definitely going to have that internal yin sort of experience when you're out in groups. You may be really intuitive, or maybe you have a way of really taking the form of whatever you need to be while you are in while you're networking, or while you are out with groups or in community. For Gemini rising, you have Pisces energy on the 10th house of career. This is the public self. This is your reputation and your responsibility. So, Gemini rising, you may have a career that requires you to be creative or more sensitive or more intuitive. When you go out into the world, you may want to. You may feel more like Pisces. You may want to come off more like a Pisces energy with in regards to reputation. You may want to feel like you're open, you're just very go with the flow. You probably learn a lot. You soak in and absorb a lot from your career, whatever it is that you do for a living. Cancer rising, you have Pisces energy on the 9th house of spirituality, traveling, philosophy, and higher learning, which is great because this is Jupiter's joy and Jupiter rules this sign. So for Cancer rising, you may find that you are very spiritual. Maybe you really are open and flowing when it comes to spirituality. Maybe you have more than one spiritual belief. Maybe you like to go on trips. Maybe you like to get high, or you like to, you know what I'm saying? You like to experience other realms through DMT, you know? Leo rising, you have Pisces energy on your 8th house of other people's stuff, shared resources, and the inner mind. So, Leo rising, you may be a little bit more, well, you're definitely going to be a little bit more internal when it comes to sharing your resources. I think that speaks to the big heart that Leo energy can have. You're so open, your heart is very big, but you have to be careful. You'll need to be guarded, not to be taken advantage of, and to be careful of the container in which you invest in. Okay. So you want to make sure you build up discernment in that area. Virgo rising, this is the opposite sign for you. This is your polarity sign. So, of course, being Pisces on the first, right, that would put, I'm sorry. Yeah, putting Pisces on the first, that would put Virgo on the sixth, which if you flip the charts, if it was a Virgo rising, then it would be that opposite, right? So Virgo, this is going to be relationships. This is commitments in your one-on-one interactions. So whereas you as a Virgo rising is big Virgo energy, having Pisces on the 7th, you probably look for a Pisces type energy when you're looking for a partner, or you may get along really well with people who basically bring out a side of you that you don't have. And sometimes that can be a little triggering, but remember, you both have that cold dynamic quality in common, and you're both yin, right? So, yeah, in your relationships with others, Pisces type energy may be the way to go. And there's a lot that you'll be able to learn through your relationships or your commitments. Libra rising, you have Pisces energy on the 6th house of daily routine, work. This is health, altruism, and your place of duty. This is where you feel obligated. So you may do very spiritual or have Pisces type of work that you do for a living. You may need some sort of work that's going to allow you creative freedom and that flow, that flexibility, to sort of operate as you please, you know, something that allows you to be bigger than yourself. You want to feel like you are contributing to society in a big way, the whole me versus we situation. Scorpio rising, you have Pisces energy on the 5th house of creativity, self-expression, risky stuff, sex, children. So Scorpio rising, this of course is another water sign for you, okay? So for Scorpio rising, that means that your 5th house is not just your 5th house, I'm sorry, but also your 1st, 5th, and 11th, I think. Oh my gosh. But yeah, Scorpio rising, having Pisces on the 5th house, you may find that some of the ways in which you express yourself, you want to go deep with people, right? You want to connect with people. You want to have that intimate connection with something that's bigger than you. So sex is never just sex with the Scorpio rising. It's going to be passionate. You want it to be romantic. You really want to melt into that other person. You may find that you're very creative as a Scorpio rising because you have another water sign on the house of creativity. Or maybe your approach to parenting is very Piscean as well. Sagittarius rising, you have Pisces energy on the fourth house of family, home, the private self, the upbringing, the shadow self. And this makes sense because, as we mentioned, both of these signs are Jupiterian ruled, right? Jupiter ruled. And so, in the more private space of the chart for Sag rising, is this Piscean energy. And you can resonate with it to some extent, but it is in a private area. So people will not see this side of you unless they are in an intimate space with you. Maybe people that you live with, because opposite of Pisces is Virgo. So for Sag rising, when you're out in the world, you may walk around and sort of exhibit these more Virgo type of qualities. Yet when you get home, you kick off your shoes and you're in for the day. You would like for it to be more of a Piscean environment. You would want to relax a little bit, go with the flow. Capricorn rising, you have Pisces energy on the third house of information, the local environment, your local environment, siblings. These are our rituals. So for Capricorn rising, for your daily rituals, you may be willing to be a little bit more flexible. Okay, you may be willing to be a little bit more creative. You may be really good with writing. Maybe there is a spiritual practice that you like to have on the daily, right? As a part of your ritual. You may want to be involved in your community. So your local environment may be something that you want to be familiar with. It's something you want to be a little bit more intimate with. You're going to want that emotional security with. Aquarius rising, you have Pisces energy on the second house of resources, your earnings, how you spend and earn money, and also what it is that you find valuable. So for Aquarius rising, you similar to Leo, you may be a little bit more open with your resources, or you may be money and how you get things done may have a flow to it. It goes in and out, and it's not such a stagnant area. You may money may slip through your fingers a little bit easier. It goes out just as quickly as it came in. There's an area of devotion as well. I do like to use devotion as a keyword for excuse me, for Pisces as well. Pisces rising, this is your sign, baby girl or baby boy. So this is your personality. It's your behavior, your vitality, your health. This is the actual self, because the rising sign is the sign through which the light enters. This is where you took your first breath. This whole entire video has basically been about you. So you're probably going to resonate with a lot of the things that I have said in this video today. But okay, you guys, that is it. That is it. I cannot believe we are already coming to a close with this series. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for taking this journey with me. I have truly enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait for the next little segment. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but it'll be something cool. Again, my name is Jerica Brochet, and I am a spiritual maven, an astrologer. I am an Usui Reiki master and an integrative healing arts practitioner. And of course, as always, I want you to get to know yourself energetically. You guys, there's so many benefits to understanding your energetic makeup so that you can co-create with the universe. Okay, things are not happening to you, they're happening for you. Okay, and so my books are open for astrology readings. Check the description box below, click the link, and you can book with me. I offer 2 types of readings right now. A meet thyself reading, and then a know thyself reading. And I have the descriptions and everything on the website as to what you can expect to get from those readings and how it can be beneficial to you. I also offer a course. I have a course on energy healing as well. You can access that from my website. So if you are new to the concept of energy, you want to know how you can take such a metaphysical topic and ground it and make it practical in your everyday life, then my course is totally for you. And it's for all different stages of learning. Okay. So from the beginner to the expert, I guarantee there's something in my course that you don't know that you will be able to learn from. Again, all that's in the description box, you guys. Follow me on social medias. There it is right there on the screen. My Instagram is at msjerib. So y'all follow me on Instagram if you can. And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I appreciate you. And I will see you guys in the next video.